Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ben, this is Books of Bangscon, and today I have for you my ranking for the 4 Brandon Sanderson secret project releases that he put out this year. I just finished up The Sunlit Man a few days ago, and so I've read all 4, and I overall just had a blast with this year of Sanderson. So one of my favorite authors releasing 4 new standalone books with different plots, different settings. I just couldn't get enough of these books, and just every few months getting a new one in the mail was so exciting. And the quality of these physical editions is just astounding for a really reasonable price. Just the success of the Kickstarter, I think, allowed them to go just above and beyond what publishers normally do, even for special editions. And these aren't really the deluxe kind of pricing, so you get just amazing naked hardcover art and color art throughout these books. The two-tone printing with making the insides on every page basically multicolor just gave it a very special feel. And I loved the just reading these books physically and listening to the great audiobooks immersively with either Michael Kramer and Kate Redding teaming up or William Demerit with The Sunlit Man. So overall, I just couldn't be happier. I liked all 4 of these books, and I'm going to be really needing to split some hairs to figure out which ones I liked above the others in a few cases. So I'll try to figure that out as I go along with this ranking. But the first one is going to be very easy, because if you see on this tier list, there's 5 spots. So what is this 5th secret project? Well, if you remember Sando's video where he announced that he had written all these books, he actually had written 5 new manuscripts. So one of them is not released. He mentioned it was a middle grade book that was really for his kids, that he might turn into a graphic novel. But that one, even without reading, I think I know that that one would be my lowest ranked one. And so the unnamed, unknown middle grade project is going to be the lowest ranking here. Also, Tier Maker required 5 tiers and at least 5 images uploaded, so that's why I included that one just for a little bit of fun. So now to the actual 4 novels. Which one is in the number 4 spot? And I'm not going to really break the trend here. I think almost everyone I've seen has liked Frugal Wizard's Handbook the least. It's the only non-Cosmere one, and I still enjoyed it, but no doubt it was my least favorite of the bunch. So Frugal Wizard, I thought when I read the preview chapters, I was pretty excited by the sci-fi premise. Oh, I'll keep this spoiler free as best I can, but basically spoiling nothing that you wouldn't get from the very beginning of the book, the preview chapters, or just, a back of the book summary. So I'll try to keep it very spoiler free. So I thought going in that this was going to be a sort of time travel or interdimensional sci-fi, and that's what we got for a while. But I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that I don't think Sanderson could help himself in injecting some fantasy world building elements into this, and I was kind of hoping that he would lean into the sci-fi genre a little bit more. And I enjoyed the satirical aspects with the inserts throughout the book from the actual Frugal Wizard's Guide. There was just some great humor that I got through those pieces of in-world ephemera. And also Kate Redding on the audiobook did a great job with those. But in the end, I don't think the main character, who's really the center of the whole story, was left too much of an impact. I think his name was Johnny, if I remember that right. But I enjoyed that arc. It's an arc I haven't read too much. A character who wakes up with amnesia and is slowly remembering things about his past life and figuring things out and trying to establish a new identity and figure out how it mixes with his old self that he's trying to remember. I enjoy that arc. I just don't think this one held too many surprises or interesting twists and turns. I did enjoy some of the side characters, but overall, I think just a fun diversion, but not something that was overly impactful that is gonna, leave me saying years from now, like, oh, what a great book that was. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was well done, and I liked the arc, even if the main character wasn't too memorable. And I think I need to try out more stories where time travel's involved, because someone coming from the future back into a kind of medieval level of society is really fun. And just imagining, what I would do in that situation. I enjoy the premise, and I think the execution was pretty good. So yeah, that was a decent, lowest ranked book for me. Now to the tough decisions, because I loved all three of these other books. They are all pretty easy to give 5 stars to for me. And so now's where I have to split hairs and figure out which one is number 3. And I'm trying to not let recency bias get in the way, since I read Tress what feels like a long time ago now, and Sunlit Man just recently. I know I really enjoyed Sunlit Man, but if I'm being honest with myself and my grippedness level to the page and my emotional investment and just how impactful I felt those stories were, that would be number 3. So we're going the Sunlit Man right there in the middle. And honestly, for what this book was trying to do, I think it did it amazingly well. I saw that Sanderson was thinking of this book as kind of a Western. So I'm not the biggest fan of movie Westerns and haven't read many in book form, but where this mysterious outsider is coming into town and he's stirring things up, and there's a lot of action and kind of Mad Max Fury Road style, and I really love that movie. So I enjoyed the action here, the frenetic pacing, especially at the beginning, and then throughout as we have these different action scenes related to the really cool world building. I was totally into it. But this character that we get is trying to internally process a lot of traumatic events from his past. And these are events that we have not seen depicted. And so Sanderson, I think, was trying to not spoil things from this character's backstory that we might see play out in future Stormlight Archive books or other books in the Cosmere. And so we're just getting these vague hints about what this character was dealing with and having to kind of overcome. And that being said, when some of the climactic moments started to happen, I got pretty into them. And just with some of the characters that were put on the page here and had arcs that were just, a few hundred pages long, I got pretty attached to them and think he did a great job with a lot of the side characters. But the main character's arc I don't think was as impactful as it could be. And it's interesting to think about the Western style in cinema. You get that outsider and you just see them from the outside, and their backstory doesn't get too fleshed out and explained. But in this format, you do get the character's inner monologue. So Nomad, the main character, is constantly thinking back to his past. But since we're not getting spoilers, once again, it's just so vague that I think it hurt my level of investment in this main character's arc. And I think if we see a lot more of his backstory play out, that coming back to this book will have more impact. But once again, 5 stars, engaging from start to finish, loved the world building, loved the resonance between the main character's arc and inner conflicts, the world building on this planet, the plot and what they have to just do to survive. There's this theme of being on the run, and that really just worked so well. Love the color theme on the book. The red covers is spectacular. The art was great. So, the plotting, too, was just so tight, and it was really fun to see them do a lot of problem solving in the book with Cosmere physics and trying to figure out how to just survive and keep going. There's a lot of really cool problem solving, and that is the type of thing that just works so well for me with Sanderson's books and these hard magic systems. So, yeah, that was pretty much firing on all cylinders. So the fact that that is number 3 here tells you a lot about how much I loved the next 2. Okay, so speaking of the second book here, which one was my favorite? Which one is in number 2 spot? Really tough, but I think for the number 2 spot, I'm going to go with Tress of the Emerald Sea. So I adored Tress when I read it. I had to wait a little while for my physical book to come in. I was just really getting impatient. It finally did. The book was so beautiful. The art in it was spectacular. And then I knew the premise of the story from the preview chapters, so I kind of knew the genre was going to be a kind of adult fairy tale, and I have not seen The Princess Bride or read The Princess Bride. That type of story is not one that I have a lot of nostalgia for, and I really did not know how it was going to hit with me. But I became entranced by this very hopeful tone of this very good-hearted, earnest main character Tress, and also enjoying the sardonic narration from Hoyd, who also I got this shirt, the Hoyd for President shirt, in the Year of Sanderson box. I think is my favorite bit of swag from this whole year. But I really got swept up in Tress's story. She's just leaving the only home, this little island she's ever known, going on this very dangerous quest that is extremely important for her, has very high stakes, and I was just rooting for her so much. The world building with the Spore Oceans was so cool, and I think out of all of the Secret Project standalones, that this is the one where Sanderson did the best job for me with the side character cast. There were just a lot of side characters who didn't get too much page time, but they felt fully fleshed out. They played important roles in the narrative. They all had different strengths that ended up coming into play and helping the crew. And so I just really loved everything Sanderson was doing. And there were some twists and turns towards the end that really took me by surprise and just made me feel like, wow, I completely missed some things, and going back in a reread will be a very fun experience. And yeah, no complaints about this one. I really loved this fairy tale style of story in Sanderson's hands, and it just worked like a charm for me. And I got very emotionally invested in this whole story and felt so satisfied by it. It's truly just a standalone book that just from beginning to end entranced me, and really felt magical and took me to another place and gave me lots of warm, fuzzy emotions. So, Tress, my second favorite, and really a wonderful book for me. And yet, I liked Yumi and the Nightmare Painter even more. There's a reason that Sanderson is one of my favorite authors. He just delivers for me on so many fronts. The creativity in the world building and the settings, the relatable POV characters and character arcs just are so easy for me to sink into and empathize with, and basically like I'm living that character's life. And then the tight plotting that is really just so suspenseful for me. And then as we get secrets revealed and try to overcome some of the hurdles, it's so gripping to me how he plots his books. And in this one, I think I was so invested in both of these characters, the main characters' arcs, that just one of my favorite books, I think, of all time. And I just couldn't have been more gripped. I just had to see what was going on. And man, from the beginning where we see these two different characters living their two separate lives in very interesting settings, it was just so easy for me to get immersed in both of those settings. A lot of authors have trouble immersing me in just a single setting, but for here I felt so connected and easy to imagine being in both of these different settings. And just when the plot came into view and into what it was going to be, that was just such a fun plot for me. Sanderson said he's inspired by certain East Asian stories. I think some Japanese manga or other stories he's seen that have had this similar kind of plotting, and I have not read or experienced any of those before. So this exact type of plot was fresh and new to me. And seeing these two main characters kind of have to figure things out together and see the other person's life and learn from the other and really just come to admire the other person and have respect for them. It was such a heartwarming and endearing arc for me. And then the plotting was super suspenseful. I had no clue how it was all going to play out, and just full of interesting surprises and a very high fantasy climactic kind of sequence that just utterly blew me away. And I was just left speechless by the end of this. It was a special book. And then inside the art, this is the best book art I have ever seen. And you just get this amazing art throughout the book, just adding just such intricate, lovely paintings that kind of help me visualize the characters and the settings even more. So that was a treat too. There was the art throughout all of the 4 books was great, but the paintings in Yumi just stood out to me as being just utterly appealing for what I want in book art and my aesthetics. So that added to the experience. The audio that switched off between Michael Kramer and Kate Redding really added to my immersion, and they did an awesome job voicing Yumi and Painter. These main characters' arcs, the self-doubt that they have, overcoming that, the themes around creativity and being an artist really resonated with me, even though I am not an artist at all and don't have aspirations to be. But it was just so easy for me to get swept up in this theme and the stories of these characters, and just so wonderful. So for all of those reasons, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter was a special, special read. So there's my ranking. Yumi, Tress, The Sunlit Man, The Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England, is that the title? And the middle grade unreleased one at the very bottom. So let me know in the comments what your rankings have been so far for the secret projects with any of the ones that you've finished. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts and your rankings, and to hear what you thought of